Sup? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I am Morrow, your storyteller for today, and with me we have some more RPG horror stories. It is morning over here, so good morning. My voice haven't warmed up and I'm just feeling very tired today, so for today I'm gonna be a little bit lazy and use just my head for tracking. I don't have my VR stuff set up, I don't have anything on. I just want to get through these last couple of stories before I get to some email story submissions. Either way, let's get to the first story for today. The Board Game Evening of Horrors, Part 1. Female player wouldn't acknowledge the existence of gay men, tries dating one who is in a relationship and freaks out when called out for it. Hello again, people. Note, this story contains a lot of clear homophobia, some borderline sexual harassment in character, and, if I understand the meaning right, some bigotry. Again, English is definitely not my first language, so please don't mind if the grammar might be a bit off in some places. Before posting my first story here, I began to note down all of my bad experiences with TTRPGs, and it's not quite a long list. These are the earliest ones. This would be a series of stories that all happen at the same place with some recurring characters. So I thought it would make sense to put them together, to not have to repeat myself with the intro. Still, one post will be one complete story. Enough for words, let's tell a horror story. Where I live, there are no big game stores that would host TTRPG evenings, but a great board game community still led the founding of a new open group as a side event at the weekly board game evenings. The event in total housed around 150 people, and in contradiction to the title, it was always very much fun. My boyfriend and I had been playing board games there for a few weeks until I realized they were hosting pen and paper there. My boyfriend wasn't interested, but was fine with me playing anyway. So I signed up to play a few sessions of TDE, The Dark Eye, a German pen and paper there. Now, meet the cast of the story. GM, a guy in his late 40s, the game master and one of the 5 people GMing there in total. Organizer, the guy in charge of the whole board game evening and a real great guy. Boyfriend, my boyfriend at the time, now my ex, hard to overlook but a very sweet guy. Raja, woman in her mid-20s, the problem player playing a cleric of Raja, the goddess of love. 3 more players that were nice to play with but don't play a relevant part in the story. And of course me, a guy in his early 20s playing a cleric of Prius, the god of the sun. I never played the Dark Eye, never even heard of the Dark Eye until this very post. It's kind of crazy to think there are so many TTRPGs that I just never really covered because of various levels of popularity, with D&D being the biggest one out there, I think, and then second to it was Pathfinder, I believe. It's kind of crazy to think there's so much about TTRPGs that I don't really know much about, and I really should try playing them. As some might know, the character creation of TDE is quite long, so we were just handed pre-made characters to get to play fast as I choose the cleric of Prius. Since I had no idea about the setting at all, I accidentally made him an always bright soul and a bit of a sunny boy, jokes intended. Instead of the strict non-nonsense type of character, think of a lawful good paladin that the cleric of that god usually are, but the GM liked the concept and the rest of the group too. So we were set on a quest to save a city of dwarves from something, never found out what. On the way there, we were searching for some clues on what's going on, but we failed our checks so dramatically that we arrived at the open and unguarded city gates without any clue about what was going on. The GM was nice enough to inform us that this might have been helpful, but we can still find out everything later. We settled at the gate for last rest and the GM called for a short break, which they did around every hour. Raja out of character turns over to me and asks me if our characters might want to share a tent, because hers wants to be kept warm by a handsome sunshine of a character. I think she worded it more direct, but I declined anyway. I don't want to play out romances or sexual stuff in game, especially as a player, and even if I would want to, my own characters are always gay, so I wouldn't be interested in hers. So I told her exactly that. At that point, I didn't really consider this to be more than a funny joke of hers because of her character's profession. She began lamenting about why everybody had to play gay characters nowadays. Wait, everybody has to play gay characters nowadays? Wait, is Morrow gay? I didn't even consider it. I guess, well, according to this lady, I guess we all gay, everybody. Congratulations. Maybe a bit of a presumptuous of me to assume ahead of time, but I feel like this lady's going into this comment with a slight bit of scorn. This was just an annoying trend in pen and paper from her point of view. I can get that point, at least to a small extent, Playing characters that have a different gender or orientation than yourself can be fun. But I had enough players who played dumb stereotypes, just wanted to mess around, playing overly sexualized characters or threw their personal fetishes into the game, and that is really annoying. So I told her exactly that. Truth was, I didn't think about my character orientation at all, so I just assumed he was gay because I am. She then ended the conversation with something along the lines of, "Yeah, of course you are." My morning voice cannot do the justice, but I imagine a Karen saying like, "Yeah, of course you are," you know, in a kind of like a nasally annoying Karen voice. And let me clarify, this sort of scornful kind of attitude is coming from being said no and being rejected to sharing a fictional tent for their fictional game characters. She's been scornful, mean, and rude because this player would not let his character share a tent with her character. I thought this was the end of the story and went to my boyfriend to check on him before going back to the table and continue playing. The rest of the session went quite well. Raja was a little passive-aggressive towards me, but I thought that was because she really wanted to story arc, which would have fitted her flirtatious characters. I, on the other hand, had just wanted to play a normal game, so I almost ignored her character. That wasn't hard, because hers wasn't really helpful anyway, but just because of the way she was playing the character. She totally aimed for the whole damsel in distress type of character, and I was not planning on being the knight to save her. Though she still tried to enforce situations that would lead there, we entered the city and found our first clue: dead dwarves with dried out skin, before the session ended. The rest of the group stayed at the table and talked about the game a little bit, while I left after a few minutes, which Raja didn't take well, presumably because she wanted to talk to me again, but I wanted to chill with my boyfriend. Back in the main room, my boyfriend was still playing, so I grabbed a chair and sat next to him. While he was finishing his game, I looked around a little and saw Raja staring at us with clear disgust in her eyes. Sadly, there was nothing new for me, but I learned not to care about it. We left shortly after with no further occurrences. When the next game event rolled around, I'd almost forgot about the whole thing. I remembered it when we arrived at the place and I saw her waiting at the entrance. It seemed to me like she was waiting for someone. Strangely enough, when the two of us moved into her view, her facial expression derailed and she immediately stormed off into the building, which prompted my boyfriend to ask me if this was about us, and I told the minor occurrence from last session. We just shrugged it off as being stupid nonsense and went inside. By the way, that is the correct thing to do. It's stupid nonsense. This lady is literally butthurt because her character didn't get any action from another character. Lady mad because she didn't get any tent cuddles. That's literally it. That's how stupid this whole situation is. It's asinine to me. While he was choosing which game he would be playing in, I went to the game room, set up my stuff for the session, and got my character sheet from the GM. I did realize that something was off with it immediately. There was handwriting all over it that didn't look like mine or the GM's. I had some stuff in my inventory that I was pretty sure wasn't there last time. I don't know, but I think I remember having things like massage oil in my inventory. Parts of his backstory, it was like 3 sentences, had been changed too, and he was now totally into women. Since I could only think about one person doing this, I asked the GM if I could see Raj's sheet, and it was sure as hell the same handwriting. Wait, hold on, I am confused. Did she ask for GM? If I'm reading this correctly, that means the GM gave her access to the sheet? If anybody could just ask the GM for somebody else's character sheet and not supervising what's going on with it, and she could just add lines willy-nilly. First of all, why is the GM allowing this? I mean, first of all, she shouldn't be doing this in the first place, obviously, but we know how she's going to be. She's the antagonist in the story. She probably doesn't care. But the GM allowing this sort of thing to happen, it's a bit of a red flag. Why didn't the GM not say anything about it, or like say like, hey, you can't put stuff on somebody else's character sheet? Unless she, I guess, convinced him like, oh yeah, he wanted me to edit something for his character sheet and asked me ahead of time before he left or something. Maybe, I don't know, but let's see how this plays out. She entered the room about then, so I handed her sheet back to the GM and grabbed an eraser to get rid of all the additions. To say that she looked really disappointed would be an understatement. She argued with the GM that I can't change my character mid-story, to which the GM plainly stated that nothing kept me from doing this. I definitely didn't change it in the first place. The first scene described after the reintroduction to the story was my character throwing the items she added away. Raja in character picked up all the stuff and wrote it down on her sheet while muttering to herself that guys just weren't grateful about gifts and while women always had to do the first steps. Nobody reacted to this, we just kept playing. The first hour was going really well, and the second almost as well. More clues were appearing, but I had no idea what we were facing. Only that it had wings, could speak ancient dwarven, and really hated my character for some reason. It tried to hit him with a statue twice. But then Raja tried to pull off the next stunt. Since we were the only characters with any magic, I was responsible for dealing the magic damage, and she was self-dedicated healer. We had just killed a dwarf corrupted by something unholy, so my magic was almost entirely spent, and my cleric took a lot of damage. Since she was almost completely focused on healing, I casually asked her to use some of her magic for that. She answered that it, in correspondence with the source of her power, would need to do something to make it work. To which the GM promptly stated that this is by no means the case and she should stop this nonsense, since this was a family-friendly game. That had never been a topic with other PCs, mind you. Even as a concept, sounds exhausting. Imagine if you take like 5 points of damage and your healer has to bang you and pork you in order for you to even get any sort of healing. That sounds exhausting. Why would anybody want to succumb themselves to that? Do you gotta give everybody sexual favors just to be able to heal them for 2 or 3 points of damage? That sounds like it would take so long. I mean, first of all, don't force these sort of sexual situations at a table in public where nobody agreed to this sort of thing at all. Nobody agreed ahead of time to this sort of thing. But second of all, why would you even flavor it like that? That sounds terrible. If you want to run some sort of a sexy game, make sure everybody at the table is cool with it and you're running with everybody fully aware there's some sort of a sexy fetish game. But don't just spring this up out of nowhere on a group that didn't ask for it. It's just weird. It's the same thing when you start just shoving, just ham-fisting fetishes in every single game session. Don't do that. Don't ham-fist your fetishes unless everybody is okay with that sort of thing happening, or if it's that kind of game where it's all about fetishes and sexy stuff. At that moment, I found out that she made this character before the story and not the GM, but promised multiple times to stay away from this stuff. Something which already confused me before, because why make a character that is focused on preaching about, in her case, sexuality in a family-friendly game? She then straight up refused to heal my character, to which the GM reacted by giving me back some magic for the heroic act in Preo's name, and I healed myself with that. We took a break, which the GM definitely needed to cool off. Good on the GM to realize this problem and try to solve this problem midway, for real. This is a very high stress situation for the GM side of things. They have a game they're trying to run, and the one player that should be doing the job of healing is not doing the job of healing and instead starting some sort of issues and problems for no reason whatsoever. So for the GM to be able to refund OP some magic back is actually like a Giga Brain Chad move. I appreciate that. It's a way to keep the game rolling and moving without dealing with the issues immediately, since the only way to solve this issue honestly would just be to ask this lady to leave, because she's not adding anything at all worthwhile to the table. But that also kind of ruined the whole party cohesion, and they're not gonna have a healer and stuff. I mean, I guess the DM could play as a DMPC healer or something, I don't know. An avatar of her god takes over her body and says, yeah, sorry, she was kind of a weirdo, I'm hijacking it now and I'm gonna be healing you guys. Like last time, I left the room to talk with my boyfriend, but this time Roger caught up with me at the door. Before she could say something, I informed her in the driest way possible that I really don't like someone messing around with my character sheet, even a pre-made one, and have no interest whatsoever in her character, or her extremely stupid sex jokes. I thought everything was said at the moment, but I was completely wrong. She then stated in a passive-aggressive tone that she wouldn't need to do all this if I finally stopped this stupid show and just asked her for a date. My response was pretty obvious to question her perception, because my boyfriend was maybe 10 meters away from us and she saw me with him multiple times, and I told her so. She just dismissed that with a phrase I would not forget because of the sheer stupidity. And that's where this whole story got stuck. I already know homosexual men don't really exist. They're just insecure about women and think it makes them look more unreachable to pretend being only into guys. It's just a trick to make the women do the first step and work harder. What? No way. There's literally no way. I do not believe that somebody could actually say something so asinine. There's no way somebody actually unironically said that. I do not believe this lady said this in the first place, because this sounds like the most asinine thing I've ever heard somebody say at all, unapologetically, without any sense or bit of irony. Just as example, let me go ahead and flip the things around. Let me turn things around a little bit, just to kind of prove a point, right? Imagine if if instead it wasn't a lady, it was a guy talking to somebody who's into, you know, a girl who's into girls, a lesbian. I already know homosexual women don't really exist. They're just insecure about men and think it makes them look more unreachable to pretend being only into girls. It's just a trick to make the men do the first step and work harder. That sounds like the most incel thing ever, right? So, well, I guess we can confirm this is the most femcel thing that could ever exist. I haven't used the word femcel, I don't think, ever in videos, but I think this is the first time I can finally use the word femcel. Just because she's a woman doesn't mean she's entitled to every man's attraction. Some guys are just not into women. Some guys are just not into anything. I mean, asexuality is a thing. Some people just don't want to have anybody at all. They just want to just be by themselves. But guess what? Sometimes some guys are just into other guys and they're super happy, like the current OP right now. He already has a boyfriend that he is with. Why would he need to chase this crazy lady? This is genuinely the first story I've ever read about a femcel, I think. Maybe there were some femcelish kind of characters we've read about before, but this is blatant, just absolutely blatant, just unadulteratedly cringe femcel thing I've ever read. I just walked past her, ignored her entirely. My brain was refusing to process that absurd amount of stupidity, but she wasn't done at that point and went after me. When I reached my boyfriend and turned around, she talked again as if nothing had happened. You two are really good actors, but you can end the show now. It's really annoying that the stupid gay trend is keeping so many women from having a partner. Why can't you guys just straight up and say you're into someone? Oh my god, this woman is stupid. This lady is infuriating to the last degree. Dude, I'm not even mad. I'm just disappointed that this could actually be something that somebody could say. OP has a boyfriend and they're perfectly happy with each other. And for her to say, you two are really good actors, but you can end the show now, sounds extremely strange to say, but it comes from the sense of her entitlement. She thinks that she's like the belle of the ball and everybody's gonna be into her. Every guy wants to f her. But guess what, lady? Your attitude and your perspectives and this sort of blatant disrespect of others, that is gonna keep you a femcel forever. Unless your attitude changes, nobody is gonna want to do anything with you, sexually or otherwise, because your horrible attitude and your horrible personality is gonna keep everybody, men, women, everything away from you. Honestly, the only thing that this woman has left is like sex toys and stuff, because those are the only things that can't grow legs and run away. I don't really know what to answer to this, because from my point of view, someone so detached from facts and reality can't be argued with. Just to get this said, this argument mostly angered me because of how wrong it was and still is. Looking at the amount of gay versus straight guys, it is nonsense. I'm quite sure that was not the reason why she didn't have a boyfriend. She was an attractive woman to the extent I can say, though that was just not the reason either. I can't say I was getting angry at her, but saying this next to the 2 meters of highly concentrated queer activism that was my boyfriend was a really bad idea. You could basically hear lightning crash down and thunder rolling as he turned around and stood up from the gaming table. Since he was a 2-meter tall guy with broad shoulders and she was around 3/4 of his height and half his weight, a lot of people looked over at him, staring angrily down at her. I knew that he would never have done anything to her, but under the eyes of basically everyone, an argumentation ensued that was getting more heated with every second. The two argued back and forth with no end in sight because she was fixated on her strange worldview, while my boyfriend wouldn't allow any one of these unexplained and senseless arguments stay unchallenged. The curious takeaway from this discussion was that she only denied the existence of gay men. Every other queer person was totally okay for her, trans, lesbian, or bi for just example. I later got kind of an explanation to why that was the case, but it wouldn't make much sense. My assumption at that point was that she just wanted to argue for why my boyfriend and I couldn't possibly be in a relationship and why I should be with her instead, as if winning that discussion should somehow magically rewrite my orientation and make me be into her instead. It was basically impossible for me to believe that she thought telling a woman that you're gay is equivalent to flirting with her, but that was her main point. Never found out she actually believed that or just made it up and then there, but I assumed that later. A lot of questions in life could be answered with the most simplest explanation, and in most likely case, it's correct. Do I think that she has this theory about like how gay men are only gay in order to try to impress women and try to look like distant and like hard to get? No, she just found a guy that she found attractive, probably OP, looked attractive to her, and she just got really ass mad that's like, oh no, he's already taken. But this argument would have happened even if you were with a woman or with a guy. She would just have a different spin. She just upset that she can't have an attractive guy or something, or just have a guy in general. In using the game event, for her, it was like a dating pool, basically. She wasn't there to play TTRPGs or anything like that. She just wanted to use it as a dating pool while playing TTRPGs to try to find a guy to attract, some sort of a nerdy guy, nerdy fellow, you know, stuff like that. If it wasn't going to be you, it was going to be another poor guy out there that had to deal with her wrath and acting and stuff. She only doubled down, mostly because she's upset that she can't have somebody, and that's really it. Some people reflect on their actions and realize I am wrong. Others double down and think that they are right and correct, and will argue till the cows come home, and there's nothing you could do about that kind of stupidity. Probably trying to find some sort of like a nerdy partner that you could just like get in with, and I guess you were just the poor victim. Maybe you're just really handsome and really good looking, and she was like, yeah, I want this guy because he looks good, and she just doubles down because she finds out you gay or not into women in general. I don't know, man. People are weird. People are wild. This is all happening. Simply, this all started, by the way, only because you said no to sharing your character and her character a tent together. This is the stupidest thing that I could ever hear, but with how hard she's been going into this whole thing and starting some sort of arguments and all that stuff, it's not that surprising, to be honest. It's very Karen behavior. I'm not sure if this discussion would have ended, but after a few minutes, someone informed the organizer and he took us three aside to defuse the situation. While all the other people resumed playing, we stopped in front of the room where we played pen and paper to get things cleared. The organizer, of course, asked what exactly was going on, to which Raja stated something like, we just had a little disagreement, but we're fine now. Our GM came back and she took this as an excuse for telling the organizer that we might continue the talk later because she wanted to finish the session on time. She didn't wait for the organizer to say anything and went into the room. The GM stopped in front of us and was quite confused since he was gone while this whole thing happened. Since Raja just left without an explanation, he asked us what on earth was going on. So we told both him and the organizer what has happened and why my boyfriend had been so angry with Raja. After GM confirmed that Raja was indeed shown some inappropriate behavior towards me in-game, the organizer went after her. For some unexplainable reason, she was very surprised when he entered the room and told her that the session would not start until he gave her a quiet rundown on the rules of the event. She just tried to ignore him and mentioned that it would be rude to let the other players, who weren't even there, wait. I can only appreciate the organizer for his patience because he stated very calmly that he would have to wait then. He showed her the rules, specifically the one about any form of hate speech and queerphobia. After giving her a quick rundown, he said very clearly that she can either stick to the rules or leave. It was both a family-friendly and safe space event. There were great people to make this work out so well. I really thought she would apologize at that moment. Naive me, if only for being able to stay at the table. But no, she told the organizer in a completely uninterested tone that she knew all that and agreed with it. But she still said it wasn't homophobia since gay men weren't a thing and we two were just doing a stupid show to mess with her. This fucking lady thinks everything is about her. She's making the whole world about her. The amount of pretentiousness behind it, dude. The amount of pretentious... Lady, nobody is into you. The OP and the boyfriend are happy by themselves without your involvement. They were happy before you. They'll be still happy after you. Well, they did break up. It's not an ex, but I mean, still, either way, the point still remains. They're happy without you. Nobody wants to fuck you. Quit trying to make this about yourself. So she had every right to call us out on that. Before the organizer could say anything, GM stepped in and told her she was not going to play at this table anymore. He was not okay with this disregarding attitude and asked her politely to take her sheet and stuff and leave the room. The discussion with my boyfriend had already been heated, but what followed next turned into a one-side shouting match. She threw a tantrum about being forced and discriminated for her completely normal opinion. It was a wild ride from one argument about freedom of speech, insult is still a crime, over being targeted for not following media propaganda and having been a victim of this gay show before, see the end, to eventually claiming things like this should be still illegal. That changed luckily before she was even born, but hey, at least she acknowledged that gay men exist. Her list of arguments was definitely very creative and totally wrong, but it didn't change Organizer's mind. After 5 minutes of this, her patience ran out, and he politely informed her that he was using his domiciliary rights, I hope I pronounced it right. She could either leave willingly, or he would make her leave. She continued her tantrums on her way out, but left the building without a fight and was forbidden from coming back again. GM tried to get us all into the story again, but sadly her tantrum had one victim: the atmosphere of the game. We all tried our best, but after an hour, the GM asked us if we just wanted to hear how the story would have ended, so that we could just play board games instead. 2 players declined and asked if it would be possible to restart with an altered version next time. I had no intention of spoiling their fun, so I agreed to that, but decided that I wouldn't participate. When I came back to my boyfriend, someone was waiting for me there. Turned out it was Raja's younger sister who wanted to apologize for her behavior of Raja. I definitely appreciated that, even if it was not hers but Raja's duty. Raja's sister explained this was not the first time Raja had been doing something like that. For some reason, Raja only dated guys who were already in a relationship. Raja seemingly claimed to be poly, which was her reasoning for why it would be totally fine for other people problem if they disagree. She did in fact mention her discussion with my boyfriend that people should be more open with the relationships. My boyfriend immediately told her that this is by no means what poly means. Raja's sister totally agreed with him. Her assumption was that Raja had superiority complex and wanted to steal my boyfriend to fuel that and feel better than their ex's girlfriends. Usually her relationship only lasted a few weeks or a month until she lost interest in a newest guy. Wow, look at that. She doesn't even care. She didn't even care about the guy in the first place. She just wanted to have like this thing, I can get anybody, and just double down and just go crazy. Even her sister couldn't fully explain. While Raja tried that with a gay man, but her assumption was that we were just unlucky victims of her damaged ego. A week prior to the first event, Raja got a taste of her own medicine, as her latest catch thanked her by cheating on her with a guy, and then outed himself as gay and broke up with her, which, according to her sister, was the first time the guy ended the relationship. She seemingly freaked out about the cheating, there goes the poly excuse, and turned very homophobic afterwards. Though I'm still not sure why she thought it would work out, but we will never know. Last thing said, I never saw Raja again, but her sister became a good combatant for my boyfriend on any competitive board game. A few weeks later, I played pen and paper there again, and it worked out well, until the next horror story rolled around. That's a story for part 2. Hope you enjoyed this story, and thanks for reading. I'm looking forward to the part 2. If it ever gets posted and stuff, I would love to cover it through. If you know a Raja anywhere, good lord, run away quickly. But also, don't let Rajas get away with this sort of stuff either. Call them out on no nonsense. If you see a Raja in the world that's doing this stuff at a TTRPG table, tell him no, and then kick him out promptly, because this sort of behavior just shouldn't be tolerated. To go this hard just to try to get a guy that is not even into you, that's wild, dude. That's genuinely wild. But you know what? There are crazy people out there that will do some crazy things, so I guess it's kind of par for the course. And with that, that's gonna be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.